Hey, and welcome to this very quick video, and it's just to help you revise for your test tomorrow. So there will be a few different types of questions. You will have linear functions, and a linear function, when you draw it, will look like this one here that you can see, where it's a straight line. And then there will be quadratics, and quadratic functions look like this. Or they look like an upside down version of this. So let's go back to the linear equation for a sec. The linear function. So this is a linear function, and I can figure out what it is if I just, 1 second, y equals minus 3, and this is 2x. So this function is 2x minus 3. So the function is 2x minus 3. Now, I would give you, in the question, I'll usually give you what the function is, and then ask you to graph it, okay? So you're going to have two different types of questions. You're going to have questions where you'll have empty graph paper where there's no function drawn on it. And I'll give you a function like this, say, and I'll say that you have to graph this from in the domain from minus 3 until, I don't know, 4, okay? So it might be from minus 3 until 4. And then what you'll do is you will draw out a quick graph, or a quick table just like this, and you'll have 2x minus 3, and you'll have your x values and your y's. These are your inputs, and these are your outputs. And you'll go from minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are going to find coordinates for all of these. So we put minus 3 in where x is. So we can see that 2 times minus 3 is minus 6. Minus 6 minus 3 is minus 9. So our first set is minus 3 minus 9. So if we have a look at this graph over here on the left, and we go out to minus 3 and down to minus 9, we can see that it's on the function. Now I'm going to show you a really quick way of drawing a function really quickly. Say I wanted you to draw this function. Now this only works, the thing I'm going to show you now, this only works for linear, okay? It only works for these type of functions. It won't work for the quadratics. But if you want to do it really quickly, do the first one, which is this one, and do the last one, okay? Because what will happen is when you put in 4, 2 times 4 minus 3, 2 times 4 is 8. Minus 3 is 5, okay? So our couple is 4 and 5. So if I go out to 4, and then I go up to 5, I can see I have these 2 dots. You can just get your ruler and just draw a straight line between those 2 dots. And you won't have to do all of this. You won't have to do every single one. So that's how to get through the linear ones quickly. And you won't lose marks, because your marks, you don't get the marks for doing this per se. You get the marks for drawing the graph, for getting this correct. Now, you cannot do that for quadratic graphs, okay? You can only do this for linear ones. And this is a linear one when it's a straight line. So now, say you've drawn your graph, and now I'm going to ask you to do certain questions. So I'm going to ask you to find f of 2, or I'm going to ask you to find f of x equals 3. So let's have a look at some of those now and just see how we would do those. So say you have a linear graph, and I ask you to find f of 3. Okay, I want you to find out what f of 3 equals. Well, in this situation, you go to 3 on the x-axis, and then you draw a line up. And then when you hit the graph and you hit the function, you go across. So f of 3 is equal to 3. And if I did f of 5, I would just draw a line up and then a line across. And f of 5 is equal to 7. So that's how you do the f of a number. Now, if I say f of x is equal to -1, what's the answer to that? Well, in this situation, we look at the y-axis. So we go to -1, and we draw a line across, and then we go up to 1. So here our answer is 1. So we're doing the opposite of what we do here, okay? So f of a number, look to the x-axis. All right, you look to the x-axis. But f of x equals a number, you're looking at the y-axis. You're starting with the y-axis. Now, if I wanted to find the slope of this line, okay, what I would do is I'd pick any point along the line. So let's just pick this point here that I've already drawn. And I draw a line down. And then I draw a line across. Now you're saying, sir, how do I pick that point? Well, let's say you pick a point here and you draw a line down even further. All right, you draw a line across. When you're finding the slope, what you want is you want to pick a point on the line where it's going through, these boxes here, perfectly diagonally. And then you want to pick a point here as well. See the way I've picked this point? I've kind of come across to this point because it's going through the corner perfectly. Now I have a triangle and I can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And now that's 4 over 2, okay? Because rise over run, 4 over 2, which is equal to 2. And if I look up here, I did a smaller triangle. So I have 1 and 2, and this is just over 1. So that's rise is 2 and run is 1, so that is equal to 2. So our slope is equal to 2. All right. So that's another type of question. You might be asked to find the slope of a line. Okay. Now, the next type of question you'd be asked to find the equation of the line. So we know the slope, and we just need to find out. So we have to, when we're finding the equation of a line, we need the slope, which is, we've just found out, 2. And we need the y-intercept, okay? We need the y-intercept. Now, where does it cut the y-axis? It cuts it at -3. It goes through it at -3. Okay. Now that I know that the slope is 2 and it cuts through the y-axis at -3, I can fill out the equation of the line. And when we're writing it out, we write it like this. We write y equals, leave a blank space, x, and then leave a blank space here. So I'm just going to put dots where the blank space is. So if I want to say the equation of this line, I just say y equals, and now I put the slope in front of the x. So the slope is 2. And then after that, I write the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is -3. So I put in -3. And that is the equation of this line. Okay, so they're the type of questions you could get asked for this one. Now, for quadratics, it's a little bit different, okay? Say you have a quadratic equation, and we were talking about... Say you have a quadratic equation, and it's -x squared plus 2x minus 3. And I said to go from -2 in the domain of -2 to 4. Here you will have to do all of these numbers. So quadratic equations take longer, okay? So if you have a minus in front of the x squared, this is the minus. If you have a minus in front of the x squared, you're going to have an n-shaped, an upside down u. If you have a positive x squared, that's a positive, okay? Because there's no sign in front, it's positive. If you have a positive x squared, you're going to have a u shape. All right, so you need to be careful of that. Now, if I ask you to find f of, f of 2, we do the same thing. We go to 2 on the x-axis, and then we draw a line up, a dotted line, whatever you want it to be, up till it hits the graph. And then we draw a line across, and we can see that on the x-axis it gives us 6.3 maybe. So the f of 2 is 6.3. Now if I'm talking about f of x equals 1, say, here I'm going to go to 1 on the y-axis and I'm going to draw a line across 1. It has, because you're going to have two answers. So you can see here, and we go down, So here we're between -4 and -5. Let's call it -4.6. So our first answer will be -4.6. And then over here on this side, it seems to be +4.6. So it's going to be just 4.6. So that's our answer if we have f of x equals 1. If we have f of x equals 0, we are looking at where the graph cuts through the x-axis. So for example, f of x equals 0. We're looking here and we're looking here. So they roughly, it roughly goes through -5 and 5. Now, if you are asked to find what is positive and what is negative, so everything below the x-axis is negative. So this is all negative, that's all negative, and everything up here is positive, okay? I'll just get rid of that for a sec. I'll get rid of that. So everything in this box is positive, and then these two boxes are negative. So from -7.2 to 5, so negative is from -7.2 to 5, but it's also from 5 to 7.2. And then positive is from, it would help if I spelled positive correctly. Positive is from -5 to 5. And the last thing that you need to know is how to draw the axis symmetry. Actually, there's one more thing. You have maximum and minimum points. If you have an n, like this one here, your maximum point is the top of the graph. All right? So here your maximum point is, your max point is 7.6. And if it's the opposite, if it's a minimum point, if it's a minimum, you're going to have a U shape. So it's whatever the bottom of the U shape is. The last thing you might have to do is find out the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry. You'll be asked to draw it. So here we can see, I'm just going to put it beside. The axis of symmetry is actually right beside the y-axis, if not on it. So you can see the axis of symmetry is along the y-axis. And you'll be asked to write, so that'll be just drawn, we've drawn it, okay? Now I want to write the equation of the line for the axis of symmetry. So where does it pass through the x-axis? It passes through at 0, doesn't it? So we just say x is equal to 0. And that's the equation of the line for the axis of symmetry. Say if the axis of symmetry, say the graph was over to the right-hand side, okay? I'm going to do quickly a sketch here. Say it was here, and this is the axis of symmetry. Where it crosses the x-axis is about 2.5, 2.6, so x is equal to 2.5. So this is the equation of the line for this axis of symmetry. So that's the basics of what you're going to have tomorrow. I think where people need to be really careful is if you have something like a -x² and you're putting in a -5, okay? You have to remember that you substitute in the -5 where the x is, and you don't forget about the minus before the x, okay? And what you do first is you do the -5² first, okay? Because -5 multiplied by -5, that's equal to 25, plus 25. So now we have a minus and then in brackets 25. This minus and this plus 25 will become a minus 25. So you just need to be careful of those, okay? Another example might be 2x squared, okay? And you're putting in a minus 1. Remember that when you put in the minus 1 and you square it, you have to do the squared first and then multiply by the 2, okay? So first you do the squared, then you multiply by the 2. So for example, here it would be minus 1 multiplied by minus 1, which is just 1. So then you have 2 multiplied by 1, which is 2. So that's where I think a lot of students tend to make mistakes, and people who've submitted the homework already, they tend to make mistakes there. So take your time. We have lots of time tomorrow, and just attempt as many questions as you can, because that's how you maximize your points. And I know this video is long, but hopefully it helped you.